Can you imagine a world where instead of war, there's peace? Instead of hatred, there's compassion, kindness, and care. Instead of people starving and having no place to live, there's enough for everyone and we are thriving. Everyone is thriving. Can you imagine a world where we are free? Free to exercise our right of choice, to express ourselves fully, authentically, without feeling like we're going to be harmed for doing so. What would you see for the world? What can you imagine for yourself? What do you believe is possible? Gandhi said, "Be the change we wish to see in the world." Why does that matter? Why is that important? And how does that even work? So welcome to this episode where we're going to actually talk about all these things. And we're going to go through 3 key steps in how to get into the alignment of how to be the change. So it's one thing to say, I'm going to be the change. It's a very different thing to be able to know how to do it. So first of all, why is this important? It said that we cannot find a solution if we come from the same energy or the same place, the same consciousness that the problem originated. So be the change we wish to see means we're taking a step back and we're looking at what would I like to see, whether it's in myself, but in the world. So I'm talking, it's connected. So you can do this definitely to start individually within your own self. And whatever generally we're sensitive to, whatever we really are called to really kind of be in tune of and really kind of gravitating towards. So an example, some people might gravitate more towards alleviating suffering. Others might gravitate more towards or care more about injustice. So that's our own soul speak, our own soul guidance, generally guiding us to kind of what our own potential offering, contribution, and way that we can create change is usually through what we personally are sensitive to. So coming back to creating a solution from a different place than the problem. So if there's war going on and we're trying to create solutions for whatever the reason of the war is, or just war itself, that means that we can't come from a place, or it won't be effective to come to a place from a place that is actually of the same frequency, such as hatred, conflict, inequality, aggression, manipulation, and disempowerment. True empowerment means we don't disempower anyone or anything else in the process of our own being empowered. So being the change asks us to step back and get clear on what is it that we actually want to see in the world. And then we get into alignment of what it is that we want to see. So before we go through the steps, let's ask why. So it's important because we can't come from the same place to create a solution that the problem is. This matters and it works because of the microcosm, macrocosm effect. Meaning there is no actual separation. If every person on the planet wants to be free, that means ultimately every being needs to be free. Now that can seem really far out there right now and really abstract. So I'm just going to drop that as a little bit of a seed. And if it doesn't resonate, just kind of put it to the side. Microcosm, macrocosm effect essentially is saying that whatever I'm vibrating out is then what I'm actually contributing as a vibration in the whole collective, in that whole macrocosm. So that's why I referenced that if there's one person that's suffering, we all on some level, might not be conscious of this, but on some level, we're all impacted because of that, because we're all connected in some way. We're all connected because we come from the same source energy. We come from the same source essence. And so moving into this new paradigm that we're entering into, we are opening up and entering into unity consciousness, one consciousness. So that as we go into higher frequency and we operate at a higher frequency on the planet, that is becoming even more prevalent for us. We are now in the era of frequency. So that's why this is so important now, because moving into the new paradigm, it's a very different landscape than our previous paradigm. It's almost like a completely different, it's like a flip, like it's a literal different world ultimately that we're going to be going into and that we're creating. And this is the key. We are creating it, and we're creating it through our frequency, the alignment of what we are giving energy to and what we are feeling. So when we become more awake, when we become more aware, when we become more clear on what it is that we want to see, and sometimes we learn what we don't want to see. We learn what we want to see by being clear on what we don't want to see. So often that's usually how we actually get clear. There's something that really doesn't sit well with us. So you could be very just outright raged at or frustrated or perplexed that there's so much war going on, that there's genocide going on, that that there's discrimination happening, that there's injustice happening, that there's manipulation happening, so whatever your sensitivity is, whatever our sensitivity is, again, this is where potentially we want to ask, well, I don't want war. What do I want? I want peace. Or I don't want people to suffer. I don't want to suffer. So what would I want instead of that? I would want compassion, or I would want gentle, loving kindness. So that's how we start to get into what do we want? And so clarity is the first step. So the second step is, what lower emotions do I need to process so that I can come from a different place? So this is, again, key and a little bit tricky often for us, if not the most tricky part of getting into our alignment, is that if we have a lot of lower frequencies running, say if I respond out of anger, I'm coming at it the same place that the anger is originating. I'm just actually fueling more anger, and I'm giving more energy to the anger. If I'm angry, there's an injustice. I have awareness that there's an injustice. But if I don't process my emotion about that injustice first, and I come and try to take a stand or act towards or for the betterment of something or someone, and I haven't first processed my emotion around it, I'm going to give it the same energy that I'm going to give to the same energy that I'm trying to actually create change with. Okay, so the second really important part of this or step is to be able to process our lower emotions. How do we do that? We feel into it. We become aware. What am I feeling about this? I'm feeling anger, or I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling confused. Where do I feel it in my body? And then breathe into it, right? So that's the processing emotion. And then the third step is, and potentially this is the most important step, is getting into alignment of what we want to see. What do we want the change to be? So if I want peace, then I need to start to practice getting into alignment with peace. So I feel peace. I maybe create a whole environment for myself around peace. I remind myself that I want more peace, and therefore, where can I start? I can start first and foremost within myself. So exploring potentially, where am I feeling conflict within myself? Where can I bring in more peace? Looking at my immediate environment. So if you have relationships, family, colleagues, coworkers, anything around you, your neighborhood, how can I start to cultivate peace? And then that starts to spread out. You might feel called to do something in a wider way. You won't have to, though. The frequency, when we start to cultivate the frequency, it's not anything that we have to do. We are being it. We are the presence of that frequency, of that consciousness that we're trying to create. Be the change we wish to see on the planet, on the world, for all beings. So we become that by feeling into it. So when we hold a frequency, so I'm going to use peace again as an example. but this is for any quality that you would want to use. So this could be for love, this could be compassion, this could be even creativity, this could be, asking, what is it that I'm really wanting? Then I want to feel it. And if you're not a feeler, try and create an environment or tune into your own abilities of how that would feel for you. And I know I'm saying feel. So it would be more, it could be a sensation. It could be a smell. It could be a sound. You can use sound frequency. It could be something else. So we want to create the frequency, and there's different creative ways that we can do that. So saying that, for this episode, I'm going to talk about using a feeling. So we want to try and feel peace. And so we could call upon a place or a time that we felt peace, and we try and really hold that. Let go of the memory or let go of the visual that we have. Once we have the feeling of peace, we want to just hold it and breathe. Holding it for 20 seconds, we're now in that alignment. We're now in that signal. We're in that vibration. And as we hold that vibration, we start to tap in to the thought forms of other people and beings that are holding that frequency of peace as well. And so the more we do it, the more support we start to have, momentum we start to have, the easier it becomes. So the first step really with this is getting it on our radar. So that would be a great question. How can I support myself daily to start to work on remembering that what I'm wanting to create change with? And if you don't see it changing, in the fashion time or way that we would like, this is where a lot of people just fall off and they just feel it's pointless, it's hopeless, this doesn't work, I'm not seeing a difference. So the invitation is really just stay steady with it. Just really stay, again, there's this microcosm, macrocosm effect, right? So think of like the ocean, and at the bottom of the ocean, if you make a ripple effect, it's going to take longer to get up to that surface. That effect of that wave is going to take, or that ripple effect in that water is going to take longer to get to the surface than, say, if you were higher up, by the surface. So if you're by the surface, it's quicker. So sometimes what we're actually trying to create change with, we may actually never see the impact we personally have had. And chances are we won't. We'll see it in other ways. But this is, again, if you want to understand it, this is where you can go and look into more of the microcosm, macrocosm effect. So within, so without, as above, so below. That's the consciousness. That's the concept of this. So when we are holding our alignment, we are holding that frequency, and it's having an impact. And for sure, it's having an impact on us personally. So it's a win-win. We're going to feel better because we're holding a higher frequency, but we're also in that way contributing to the change that we want to see in the world. And imagine if more and more of us start to do this consciously, how quickly and exponentially things could change, because it doesn't take every single person to hold a frequency in order for that change to happen, because higher frequencies act faster and higher frequencies transmute lower frequencies. So that's also important for us to keep in mind as we're doing this, so that we don't lose momentum and we don't lose enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is the biggest thing. How can I stay enthusiastic about what I want? So again, setting up reminders or putting pictures up of, what it is that we want to see, and really staying focused on the positive of it. We are retraining our subconscious in the process of this, because we're always creating something. Something's always coming out of our subconscious. It's just most of the time we're not conscious of it. We're not aware of it. So as we start to get more consistent and consciously choosing what we want to be in alignment with, then it becomes easier and easier. But we are retraining our subconscious. We want to make sure that we're staying in the positive. We're not using the language, I want to eradicate war, I wish there was no war, because our subconscious hears war. So that's important too. So if we're using any type of thinking or affirmations around it, we're also affirming it in the positive. I want to see it, and I want peace. I am aligned to peace. And then feeling the peace and moving any lower frequency that comes up, any conflict. Keep in mind that when we start to give energy to something, when we feel really ready to contribute to something, or we want alignment of something, or we want to bring in something, then what needs to come up and out of the way will come up and to be processed or to be released. So energy creates that, it's space. It fills a space within us. Energy does. That's also why when we know that we want to be something and we want to contribute to being something in the world or to see that change, that's another reason why it's important to process those lower emotions, because if they are there, we can't land, we can't be consistent and maintain those higher frequencies, for example, of peace. Okay, so just to reiterate, the 3 steps are clarity. What is it that I want to see in the world? And again, remember, sometimes we see that from knowing what we don't want and then getting into the clarity of, this is what I want to see. And then second, processing any lower emotions, processing any lower frequencies or energies that are there. And usually there is some there, because that's part of what gets us into awareness that there is a problem and enough of something that we want to make a difference with or we care about. And oftentimes this process too is so empowering, because most of the time with what's happening, we don't feel like we have any say in it or control over it or choice in it, most importantly. And so again, this is where it's a win-win too. We're taking leadership of our lives ourselves by saying, this is what I want. And I don't have to be helpless in this. I may not yet be in a position or ever be in a position or want to be in a position where I'm in a leadership position in the sense of the ones making decisions, pulling the strings of things. But I can be very empowered in taking leadership by choosing to give energy to and focus on what I do want to see in the world, and continuously asking, what change do I want to see and how can I contribute to that, be enthusiastic about that, and be consistent with that. And then the third step is the alignment. So it's feeling it, feeling the feel, giving energy. Again, starts with ourselves individually, and then, spreading it out into our relationships, into our communities, into anything that we can do, relating whatever we've chosen. So I'm using peace here. So every time I'm relating to something, am I cultivating peace? Am I relating to it from a place of peace? And if I'm not, that's information for me. It's information. If I'm having a hard time holding it, why am I having a hard time holding it? If I got pulled out of it, it's information. I maybe need to get a little bit stronger with it, or something got activated for me that I need to process. And so it's all information. So extremely empowering, because we don't have a lot of say right now over specific things. We do have incredible power, though, to cultivate, starting to really create the world that we want to see by being that. So be the change that we want to see in the world. So how do you feel about that? What are your thoughts on that? And what do you want to see? What's important to you? And what would you like to see for the world? Have a beautiful day. Namaste.